Hey, what's up guys? Today we'll be drawing Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII in the Kingdom Hearts game. Now in this short video tutorial I'll be going over the step-by-step of how to create this cloud drawing from start to finish. If you just want to see the speed drawing video of this drawing, you can go ahead and click on the info card now. Make sure you check out the video chapters in the description below to preview all the steps or to skip to the chapter that interests you the most. And if you already love what you see here, the completed drawing, feel free to hit like and subscribe. Now let's take a look at the materials we need for this drawing. You're going to need a medium point black marker, a fine point black marker, a pencil, an eraser, and some color pencils. So the colors I have here with me, I have a peach tan and a brown tan for the skins. I have a gray and a black for all the silver pieces. I have a blue and a dark blue for the shirt, the pants, and all the blue areas, the wings, and the eyes. I have a golden yellow and a yellow brown for the hair. Brown is for the shadow. I have a dark gold, and I'm using the same yellow brown again for these ribbons on the sword. I have a red and a red brown for the red cape. And that same yellow brown that I'm using for the shadow for the hair, I'm using it for the mid-tone on these brown gears. Okay? And then I have a dark brown for the shadow. Alright, so I'll be doing speed drawing throughout the entire video. So if you're drawing along, feel free to pause the video and catch up with me. Okay, so to briefly go over all the steps, we're going to rough in the basic shapes and forms, the stick figuring, form figuring, and the claw figuring, and then refine the rough sketch to have a detailed drawing. Then we're going to trace a pencil drawing with marker and erase the pencil drawing, then put the colors in, and then last but not least, thicken the profile lines to make the character read better. Okay, are you ready? Let's begin with basic shape and form. Now before we start our drawing, let's take a look at a reference picture of Cloud and find out what shapes and form we can use to create our drawing. So again, we have a human figure here, and if you look at the little thumbnail I drew on the corner, head and then torso, come down to the hip, 2 legs, 2 knee joints, the right arm comes down like this, the left arm sticks out, and then holding this huge sword, okay? So if I were to repeat this on the bigger figure, okay, the head right here comes down, the torso comes down again to the hip, and then one leg, the thigh, sticks out to the knee joint, and then comes down to the foot right here. Another leg to the knee joint comes down to the foot right here. Okay, 2 shoulder joints. This arm comes down to the elbow joint, comes down to the hand. Again, right here, elbow joint comes, shoulder joint comes down to the elbow joint, comes down to the hand. Okay, holding a big sword. Then we got some really cool bat wings and a small cape here. All right, lighting direction. It's not very apparent, but it is still coming from the top down like that. That's why you see the shadows here, shadow here. Okay, mostly still on the lower side of the character. Okay, so lighting generally still coming from up down. Now, this reference picture has a lot of dark colors on it, and I can't really see a lot of the areas very clearly, like the light, highlight, midtone, and shadow areas. Not very defined. So I printed out a lighter version of it, and then this lighter version you can see a lot more clear, especially like the highlight and the shadow areas on the pants. And some shadows on the wings and the cape. You know, it's going to help me. So I'll be referencing both of these. I'll be looking at both of these when I'm drawing. Okay. And mostly, I'll probably be using this one, and when I come to color, I'll reference back to this one, okay? Alright, so actually to begin with, I'll probably go with this one first. So now we have all the information we need to start our drawing. Let's begin with stick figuring, okay? Let's just nail the pose, okay? Okay, so we have the stick figure drawn, so let's take a look right here. With the reference picture, now we have over for the head, comes down to the torso, okay, and then comes down to the hip, okay, the hip. Right thigh goes to the knee joint, comes down to one foot. The other thigh comes down to the knee joint, comes down to the other foot. And we have the shoulder joint, comes down to the elbow joint, comes down to the hand. Another shoulder joint comes down to the elbow joint, and it comes down to the hand. Okay, so we have the pose nailed in. Now let's just give it some form. The form figuring is about thickening up the legs, the arms, putting like a little thickness of the neck, you know, so a little bit more defined. Okay, see the anatomy of the character a little bit more. Okay, so let's give it some form and thicken it up. Okay, I kind of jumped ahead a little bit and went to a little bit of the clove figuring already. It just comes so natural to me. But if you look, see how I have the arms thicken, the body thicken, and the legs thicken. So we have like a overall form of the character. Okay. So the next step is clove figure. So we do stick figure first, form figure first, and clove figure. Okay. So I separate these into 3 steps, which is they combine into the basic shape and form step. Now sometimes when you're doing stick figuring, because it's just so natural, you're so used to it, you might be doing a little bit of form figuring when you're doing the stick figuring, because you kind of know it so well already. Then after, when you're doing the form figuring, you probably know, without knowing, you're doing a little bit of the clove figuring too. But let's just divide it into 3 stages: stick figuring, form figuring, and clove figuring. So we have the forming here. Next step is our clove figuring stage. So clove figuring includes all the accessories, the weapons, the clothing, the wings, the gadgets, and stuff. Okay. So technically, like these little details here on the sword, the belt is supposed to be in the clove figuring stage, but I kind of jumped ahead and did it. But in this stage, I will refine the shapes a little bit more. Okay, so let's do clove figuring and add all these gadgets in here. Okay. Okay, so now we have our clove figure form. Okay, so begin with stick figuring, form figuring, now with clove figure, then completes our basic shape and form step. Okay, and believe it or not, this is actually the most important stage of the drawing because it is the foundation of everything else that comes after. We're going to start refining in a second, and if you don't like what you have at this step, keep working on it. This is the step where you can stress out, you can keep comparing, keep measuring with a reference picture, like, no, be very picky on everywhere trying to match it with this. It's the stage to do it. You don't want to do it when you're refining the drawing, because when you're refining, I have all those crazy details, you know, and then trying to fix bigger proportions, it's just not going to work. You're going to keep erasing, keep correcting until you lose interest in your drawing. And that's the worst thing you want to happen when you're drawing. Okay, you want to keep having fun, keep being excited, keep loving your artwork. And the last thing you want is stressed out to the point where, like, I just don't want to continue drawing this character anymore. That's the worst. But all that can be taken care of at the basic shape and form stage, which is this stage. If you're going to compare, you're going to measure, you're going to try to copy exactly, do it at this stage. After this stage, when you start refining the drawing, forget about that. If some portions are off when you refine the drawing, work with it. Okay, like, work with what you have, okay? If everything's correct, good, more power to you. Remember, you're not a copy machine. You're not going to be able to 100% copy this original artwork. What you're doing is to learn from this artwork. You're learning how to draw Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII in Kingdom Hearts, so that after you learn his anatomy, after you learn what he should be drawn, then you can create your own pose, or create your own version of Cloud Strife, okay? So, after this step, no more corrections. Just start refining the drawing to the best of our ability, okay? And be excited, love your art, have fun, okay? So that's why you see how I draw very, very loosely. Like all my line works are very rough. I'm not trying to commit to any lines right now. These are all rough lines, okay? I'm gonna figure out the definitive lines when I refine it, okay? This is just so that all the proportion, all the anatomy, all the major details, they're like anchor points, like, so I know when I refine the drawing, like, draw heavier where exactly to draw, okay? Now, like I said, if you don't like it, keep working on it. It's okay. Work on it as long as you want. Keep the lines rough. Erase this one as long as you want in this step. But after this step, we're going to go on the tiny little details. Don't stop making corrections. Just focus on details, make it look cool. Okay? So if you're happy with what you have, let's move on. Man, wow, that was a lot of details on Cloud. out of all the drawings that we've done so far, I'd say Cloud probably has one of the most details, like so many little details in there. Okay, but that was fun. Okay, so something I want to talk about is like, we're drawing with a pencil, and the pencil has thickness, okay? So, when you're following like a reference picture that has very fine details with super thin lines, it's going to be extremely difficult to try to replicate all the small details on a drawing, especially when your pencil, the pencil point is thicker than the original artwork, okay? I'd say like you're gonna have a very hard time if you're trying to like replicate exactly like a lot of details. So you'll see that on a lot of the small details, I have to exaggerate. I have to amplify. For example, like little bolts here and there, or like these little belt buckles and stuff. Like on my version, I have to make them a little bit bigger so that those details will show because my pencil is so thick. Okay. Now this original artwork, it's a lot bigger than what we have printed on 8.5 by 11. Number one, it's probably drawn on something that is at least twice as big. Number two, it probably is colored digitally and enhanced digitally in Photoshop. It's not like done all traditionally on a piece of paper. So a lot of details you might not be able to carry through onto your artwork. But there is a way to do it, is to amplify those details. It is to exaggerate these details, kind of like doing a caricature, you know? You look at like the key features of your subject, and then you amplify it, okay? So, a lot of details I wasn't able to see on the lighter version, I am able to see on the darker version, you know? And those details are not going to be like exactly the same. You're going to have to modify a little bit to make it fit your drawing. Because like I said, the line work of this pencil is probably at least 1.5, or maybe twice the thickness of this original picture, okay? So a lot of details, we might just have to, like, sometimes you have to squeeze in some of the details, and sometimes some details, it's just not going to fit in. You might have to skip some of the details. Okay, but that was super fun to do. Alright, so next step is to trace the pencil lines with your marker, okay? So the trick here is to keep rotating the paper, okay? So you can produce very, very smooth lines. And you don't, remember, a lot of lines, you don't have to try to, like, create it in one line. You can break it up, long line, you can break it up into smaller single lines. It just have to look continuous. For example, this long curve right here, I don't have to try to finish it with one take. So see, let me give you a demonstration. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See, that was 5 lines making one continuous line, okay? Now, one last thing I want to say is, don't stress out about little details matching up. Imagine it this way: if you're a professional photographer, you're photographing Cloud, and Cloud's gonna stand there for a minute, try not to move, and you're gonna take like 30 pictures in that minute of the same pose. Now that 30 pictures is gonna all look different. It's because a person cannot stand still like for a minute, like perfectly still. That's impossible. Especially when there's other factors like the wind, like the clothes. Like the clothes are very soft. You know, they're gonna change the form every second. You know, so just imagine that the reference picture was probably taken like 10 seconds before your drawing. So it's gonna look very close, but it's not gonna be exactly the same. Okay? Like I said, same person, same pose. If you take 30 pictures in a minute, all those 30 pictures will look different, even though the person tries to stand still as perfectly as they can. Okay? With all that being said, let's start tracing. Alright, so now we've done tracing the pencil drawing with marker, and make sure when you erase, you hold down the paper with your other hand, okay? Sometimes if you erase too hard, you might make a wrinkle on the paper, so make sure you hold down to your paper. Alright, so next step is coloring. Now most objects will have highlight, midtone, and shadow. Now a lot of illustrations, if our reference image, I'm going to use the light one because you can see it more clearly. Like a lot of times artists designs the lighting. Okay, so there will be a general lighting direction. For example, for this reference picture is from the top down, but a lot of it is designed. So the way that this artist interpreted lighting in this design, it's kind of like an ambient occlusion kind of lighting. It's like a soft shadow overall. And the way this technique is done is pretty much like when an area gets closer to a corner, it gets darker, and then when an area that's more wide, like this, big area like that, it will be lighter. So when coloring the shadow, you want to make sure that when it gets to like little corners, it will become darker. Okay? That's kind of like a technique that this artist used, okay, when she was doing adding the colors on it. Okay, so I am going to actually use this as my guide because I can see a lot of the shadow and the highlight definitions. I'm going to start throwing on the first layer of color, which is midtone. It's going to look very flat. I'll probably leave a couple of highlights here and there, like right here, maybe like right here, right here, right here, but not too many highlights. But after the first layer of midtone, we're going to take a look at shadows, okay? Okay, so we have all the midtones colored in. So like I said, I didn't leave too many highlights because the original artwork doesn't call for too many highlights. So some highlights right here, so I left it right there, some on the skin. And overall a little bit here and there for the highlights, but not too much highlight. The shadow, after we put in shadow, is what's really going to define this drawing, really pop it out and make it three-dimensional. Okay, so like I said, for the shadows, I will be looking at some of the folds. Besides the folds, I will be like looking at like where the areas gets closer to a corner, to an edge, where like the areas are more dense, will be more heavier, will be more darker. Okay, that's will be kind of like my general rule of thumb when I put in the shadow here, which is kind of like mimicking what the original artist did. Okay, so let's put in some shadow and see how it goes. Oh, one more thing. Since like the original artwork is so dark in some areas, like after I put in my shadow, I will grab that black pencil mark, black color pencil, and then maybe I might just like punch a couple areas in, make it extra darker. Okay, to really like make some of those areas like go darker. Okay, all right, let's start. Okay, see how that after we put in the shadow, the whole drawing becomes a lot more dimensional? It's because with your highlight, midtone, and shadow combined, everything will read as 3D forms instead of 2D flat shapes. Now I know it looks pretty awesome already, but we're going to make it look even better by making the profile lines thicker. The profile lines are the outermost border lines of a figure, like the head, the arm, the legs, okay? Now detail lines like these armor pieces, they're not profile lines, okay? So when you make the profile lines thicker, the whole character will pop out better, and the details will read better too. Because right now there's so much details going on. It's a beautiful cluster, but it's sometimes kind of hard to read, like the major shapes and forms. After you pop out the profile lines, you'll be able to read it a lot better. Okay, so let me show you how it's done. Okay, so this completes our drawing for Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII in the Kingdom Hearts game. Okay, I hope you guys enjoyed this drawing tutorial. Let me know in the comments below what we should draw next. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Now remember, drawing is like playing the piano. You can have the best instructor and the best music sheet in front of you. You might even know the music very well. But it is only through the right practice that you'll get better and become what you want to be. The whole point of my video is to provide a side-by-side training for you on a daily basis. Like riding a bicycle, I might have to hold your hand in the beginning, but just keep drawing and keep practicing, and before you know it, you'll be flying. I'll see you next time for more exciting drawings.